Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in the world at this time. Welcome back to Veterans in Conversation. This is episode 2 of season 2. So we're very happy that folks are here with us live, and folks will also be able to see this at their leisure. This is being recorded, so we're very excited about that. So today we have a guest with us from Perth, Australia, Karney Armstrong. She served in the Australian Navy and she currently teaches trauma sensitive and adaptive yoga. And she's very passionate about being an advocate for veterans and first responders. So that's one of the reasons why we have her on, because if you've been watching the Power Story and the Veterans in Conversation, you know that's exactly what we're all about. So, Karney, welcome here today, and it's a very early morning for you at 5 a.m.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, it is very early in the morning, so I apologize for the bags, but it is what it is. I'm very excited to be invited to come on here and have a chat with you guys.
Yeah, we are absolutely excited. And speaking about that, my co-host Barry is here as well. We always do this together. Good morning to you, Barry. It's what, 7 o'clock your time, or after seven now?
Yeah, it's now about 7:15, so we're two
Oh,
hours ahead of Perth. Yeah.
all right. Well, you guys are just cutting the path for the rest of us here in the U.S. So we're we're happy that you're on the front end. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, Barry, I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to, give us
Okay.
a nice introduction and bio for Carney. Then we'll hop into the interview.
Yeah, Connie, it's first of all, it's just a pleasure to have you on here. When I
Thank you.
saw the work you are doing at a body-based level, it just resonated deeply with me. And, when we spoke earlier, we talked about how so much pain lives in the body and so many modalities stop at the frontal cortex in conversation. So the fact that we are having people like yourself who are paying attention to the body talks to the power of the healing that can happen from that place that simply only having a conversation cannot have. Together
Yes.
they work. So it's good to have you on board. A bit about yourself. So Carney is an Australian Navy veteran and former medic. Her father's actually ex-SAS.
Oh,
So she
he's
comes from,
still serving. He's still
oh
serving.
my
He's a
word,
reserve, but
okay.
he's still serving.
Cool.
Yeah, he's
All right. So,
53, still serving.
and they are amazing fathers to be brought up with. She has completed 350 hours of yoga training, teacher training in Western Perth, as well as 100 hours of trauma sensitive yoga teaching training at the clinic in Perth. So there's a lot of training and expertise that are going to be present here today. Connie currently teaches trauma sensitive and adaptive yoga, and drawing from her experience as a medic and athlete at the Invictus Games, her classes cater to all levels, from chair yoga to mat-based practice or even taking a restorative nap. And I'm very interested to hear about your medic side because I was a fighting medic in the Rhodesian Bush War, so we share a bit of a similar background.
Yeah.
In September 2023, Karney had the honor of representing Australia at the Invictus Games, Germany, where she won gold in the women's 100. What's IT8?
So that was my classification for my
Okay,
disability. Yeah.
okay.
So I was in a wheelchair basically.
Wheelchair based. Okay, so that was a 100-meter race chair sprint, and Karney was the first female Australian to do so and a silver in the women's seated shot put. That same year in December, Karney completed the Resilience Shield mentor course, led by the highly respected authors of the Resilience Shield, who are also SAS guys and have an awesome reputation here in Australia. Connie's also involved in a Murdoch University study, Yoga versus CBT, no comment, which is evaluating which modality is more effective for veterans and first responders in managing PTSD and pain. I'd like to suggest that both go well, and without yoga, it's a lot more harder. So
Mm.
that's great, Connie, and good to know you are doing that. And beyond yoga, Connie's also a passionate advocate for veterans and first responders, and this includes retired military and police working dogs and service dogs, and have experienced firsthand the profound impact of both her service dogs have had on her healing and daily living. she's incredibly grateful for the Integra Service Dogs Australia, who produce gold class standard service dogs, which Karney notes resulted in her first service dog saving her life, which is an interesting story, maybe great to hear if you're willing to share it. Karney's also currently writing a children's chapter book titled The Adventures of Ivy May. The story, centered around resilience, introduces young readers to the many ways dogs support humans, and it's told through the eyes of Ivy, an ex-Border Force dog who was re-employed to become a service dog after struggling with separation anxiety. The book follows Ivy's journey through service dog school, and along the way, Ivy meets other working dogs who share how they assist their humans in everyday life. With a strong Western Australia and Army theme, this book aims to educate children while shaping how both children and adults perceive service and military working dogs. So, Karney, you cover so many areas. I think it's going to be a really dynamic conversation. It's just wonderful to have you on here. And if you just like to start from your beginnings and your journey, wherever you choose to go, we'd love to hear
Oh,
that.
so I'm actually what we call an army brat. So my parents were in the army. My dad's still serving in the army, but my whole family is Navy. So I'm third generation Navy. My parents divorced when I was quite young, so my mum was a single mum. But when mum joined the army here in Australia, women used to train separately to men. So when mum joined up in 1985, she was actually the second cohort of females to be training at the same training establishment as males. So that was very, that was big back in the day, 85, women trying to be seen as equal. But my mum was a truck driver, so she used to drive B doubles and triples and, very masculine job. I'm not that way inclined, as you can see. So I grew up with my mum being a strong single mum in the 90s. In army, never really thought about children. Their motto was, if we wanted you to have a child, we would have issued you with one. So if you need to go bush, sort it out. So I used to go and live with my grandparents a lot. And my grandfather's a Vietnam veteran who did 2 tours at the age of 17. And a lot of anger, a lot of PTSD, a lot of denial, didn't get diagnosed till later in life. So living with him was extremely hard. We moved around a lot, which was not easy for me. Every 2 years, we moved interstate to another part of Australia. And in 2001, we were actually posted here in Perth, living with the SAS guys. And at 13 years of age, all I cared about was myself. I was very hormonal, went to an all-girls school. And then 9/11 happened. And I woke up that morning. I had a ritual that I used to do every morning. I used to sit on my letterbox and have my Milo and watch the SAS guys run past. Although I never knew who they were. I just thought they were just good-looking guys. I just thought they may be truck drivers like my mum. That particular morning, no one was around. And it was kind of like, have I slept in? What's going on? And then when I got ready to go to school, one of the wives used to pick me up with her children to go to the all-girls school. And when she picked me up, we're driving on the highway, and she turned around and she said, how do you feel with all the SAS guys, all the boys leaving in the middle of the night? And I just said, I don't know what you're talking about, all these boys. What's going on? And she pulled over and she said, Karney, the SAS guys have left. And I went, what's SAS? Like, no idea what this means. And so I found out in a very short period of time, we're going to war. Your dad is SAS, he's a sniper, he's old school. Your mum's going to Afghan and Iraq on a Navy ship. You have 2 options. You can live with your grandparents or you can become a boarder at the all-girls school. And I didn't want either of options. I was like, no, I don't want to go and live with my grandparents, nor do I want to be at my school. So within 2 or 3 weeks, I moved to the other side of the country, in Nowra. So it's about 2 hours south of Sydney on the beach. And that's where my whole family reside. It's quite a big, large Navy base there. And mum was on HMAS Canimba as part of the Army department on there, which kind of helped with the SAS guys that came on board the ships to kind of get them to their location. Life was very confusing. I didn't know what was going on. 9/11 had happened. We don't go to war. We just practice it. And then all of a sudden I found out, your dad's SAS, he's a sniper. Whoa, that's kind of not what we do in our family. We're just truck drivers. We're just, normal Whoa, that sounds like something happens in America. That sounds like a movie. We don't have SAS in Australia, surely. So it took me a while to get to digest that. I think, to be honest, even though I had a very challenging upbringing, that would be the hardest part of my life, was to digest the fact that my dad was SAS and a sniper, because he doesn't present that way. And a sniper, you kind of think, oh, that's kind of against the Catholic values that I've been brought up with. So I actually went through a few phases of being scared of my dad, because I didn't understand how that settled in my belly, to be honest. Like, he kills people. Like, my mum's a truck driver in the army. She doesn't kill people. But no, dad does. That was very hard for my brain at 13, 14 years of age to kind of digest that. So I found that very, very hard. At that time too, there's a lot of protesting. Everywhere you went, there was protesters. You had the media trying to find out your story. Security was quite high. It was very much a flashback from my grandfather from Vietnam again, and he wasn't coping, and he wasn't diagnosed with PTSD. So there were hard times. That first tour, my mum came back early. She nearly lost her leg. Had an accident on board the ship. And when she came back from that first tour, she was different. My mum's a very lovely lady. She's always helping the underdogs. That first tour, she came back very army-like and very nasty. And I just went, Mum, that's not you. You sound like my pop. And she snapped. She snapped a lot. She got herself up to her fitness within a short period of time to go back and do the Iraqi tour in 2003 on board the HMAS Kanimbla. She came back from that trip. She was never the same, and she hasn't been the same since. I've lost my mum since then. She's very angry, very nasty, and she drinks. My mum would never drink. She would never swear. She's got PTSD. So I ended up staying with my grandparents until I left school, and then I went and joined the Navy. Best thing I ever did. Got out of Nara, a little small town, and went and joined the Navy, and it was the family I've always wanted. It was exactly what I've been looking for. I went through Cerberus, which is right down the bottom of Australia, in winter, which is freezing cold. I had a shaved head because I lost the bet, so I thought, why not? I'll have a shaved head. And it was hard, but it was awesome, because we're a family. It's like this family, because I'm an only child. It's a family I've always wanted. We're surrounded by our brothers and sisters, and every challenge that we took on, we did it as a group, and I love that. When I graduated, I actually joined up as a linguist. So I went to learn Indonesian, and that was amazing. I was just saying before to Barry, the power of language is so, so important. How you do that with your tone and express that is very important, how the reader or the person receiving that message. I was too young in the head, to be honest, to be a linguist. So I changed streams and I became a medic, and it was the job for me. I'm so glad I became a medic. Once I graduated, I did everything I could to come back to Western Australia, because that's where Dad is and that's where the submarines are. And I have a very beautiful guy that I look up to, and I have all my career that I met when I was a teenager, and he's now just been announced on Monday. He'll be the Chief of Navy come July. And I was just saying before to Barry, this beautiful man, Matt Buckley, he came from not the best parts of Sydney, and he graduated from a public high school, and here he is about to be Chief of Navy in July. So that's incredible. That's not heard of here. So he's a very humble man, and he loves his sailors. And you talk to any submariner sailor, they love him because he's able to be able to get to their level and speak on their level. And when you're able to leave a conversation, feel heard and understood, that's amazing. And that's a gift, not that everyone can do. So I came over here and I served over here for my whole entire career. I kind of hid away from the posters because I didn't want to go back to Sydney. But I went onto a few platforms. I did some ship times, which was amazing. Went up to Japan. I did some time on a patrol boat, which is not heard of as a medic because they don't have medics on board. But because they were leaving Australian waters, they needed a medic. So we did asylum seeking. That was very much an eye-opener. That was a really big eye-opener for me. And then my last platform, we were getting ready to go to the Middle East. So we're doing workups for that. But then I fell pregnant. So my boy's dad, we were together for 10 years, and 7 years he was physically away. So in the Navy on deployments to back, and then Dad being SAS was never home. So it came to a part that I was kind of running the health centre. We had a lot of our medics on suicide watch because of the stresses. We had so many suicides on the base that I work at here in Stirling in Western Australia, which is the Navy's largest base. We had a lot of suicides, and I think every time we lost someone, a part of me died with them, because they're your patients. They come to you for help and guidance, and if you don't capture them when they're coming through, and it might be presenting for a cold or a cough, if you don't kind of see those flags and get to them, that's it. Particularly the men, they don't really like to come through a few times asking for help, or they don't physically ask for help, but you've got to pick up the signs. And there was one case, I was heavily pregnant, and I said to the officer, I said, "Look, sir, you're ready to go to sea next week. You're all good." And I didn't realize that was him screaming for help. And then, half an hour later, we were called out to his cabin, and he had ended his life. So that was something that was happening a lot. We don't obviously advertise when people take their life in the uniform. That's something that the government like to hide. But that got to me, especially as being a mum. I saw things differently. Beforehand, I would have not the black humor so much, but if I saw someone having a seizure, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, that's what it looks like to have a seizure. Oh, wow, okay." When I became a mum, I remember going to my first safeguard and doing what I was doing. It's like my body muscle memory was there. The tears were coming down. And I was just thinking, why am I crying? I don't cry. Crying is weakness. But I realized that when I became a mum, that switch had turned on. And this patient wasn't just a patient. They were someone's son, someone's father. It was deeper than the individual. And I felt that I really felt that. And it hurt. So as time went on, I obviously just tried to move on, and I had my second child. And when I was pregnant with my second pregnancy, that was just, there's no going back. I PTSD was definitely there. I couldn't hide it. OCD, micromanaging everything. So I didn't want people to die anymore. So if I micromanage, I'll be able to have everything, and I could spot where people are going to die. And you just can't do that, And it came to a point where I was medically discharged only after 11 years of service. And to me, the feeling of failure was huge. Like, my family do 20 plus years minimum. My dad's been in since he was 17. He SAS since 21, and that was the youngest you could be at this age. He's 63 and he's still going. So 11 years, that was embarrassing. And I was like, I'm a medic and I failed in my family. That's how I perceived myself. And at the time, my fiance was in the Middle East again, so I wasn't coping well. And I was wanting to bring movement in the Invictus Games as part of the rehab when I was a medic, because I knew that movement is medicine. And I was seeing some successful stories through my patients who had gone to Toronto, and having something to aim for that was within their reach. Like, a fitness test may not be in their reach after having a seizure, but practicing and training for the Invictus Games was. And to see how that helped them, I was like, this is the answer. We need to create a rehab program where we incorporate the Invictus Games. That hasn't happened. I was discharged, and when I was talking to these people, they said, "Karney, you need to go for the Invictus Games to show people that movement is medicine." I don't do cardiovascular exercise. I struggle with my fitness. My body now doesn't know the difference between a panic attack and having an elevated heart rate just from going to the gym. So every time I said the words Invictus Games, my eyes would fill up with tears of anxiety. And at that stage, I was anorexic. I was bedridden. I couldn't move, and I was very, very underweight. So unfortunately, my 4-year-old had to look after my baby because I couldn't get out of bed. Their dad, like I said, was overseas, and as was my dad. And I didn't know how to ask for help. I struggled to ask for help because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be seen as weak. And I started training for the Invictus Games. When I was still serving, I went to Jacksonville for the US Warrior Trials, and that was amazing. You guys, I absolutely love how you guys respect your servicemen. everywhere I went, thank you for your service, ma'am. And I'll be like, oh, no, 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 I'm an Australian. And they're like, oh, I don't care, ma'am. Thank you for your service. And it's really touching, actually. It's going to make me cry because we don't do that in Australia. And in Australia, it's like, well, we don't need to be thanked for our service. But I tell you what we're seeing now and what we're going through now, we need that. We need that respect from our countrymen because it's not there and it's actually killing us. And so that was so beautiful to witness. And the treatment that we were getting, we were like, oh, you're a serviceman. And, you know, I was with some people with amputees, come to the front of the line and here, ma'am, you can have some free alcohol. And I was just like, we got to Australia in Sydney at 6 o'clock in the morning and I was screamed at by someone that wasn't born in Australia and got told to go to the back of the line. And I'm just like, I'm in uniform. I just came back from America. We were like gods over there. And now I'm being screamed at, told to go to the back of the line of customs. I was like, what's happening in this country? And it's honestly, we have gone backwards. Vietnam was a big time for us where we were getting spat on. And now it's going back to Vietnam times. And we're seeing it. I'm seeing it every day with the veterans. And if you guys aren't aware, in America, my dad being SAS, so this is very close to home. For some reason, our government are investigating 19 of our SAS for war crimes for what happened in Afghanistan. And one of them is our Victoria Cross winner, Ben Robert Smith, who's a big giant. And last week he was arrested after 10 years of a witch hunt. So seeing some of these guys be followed by the Australian Federal Police all the time, their kids witnessing being followed, having their houses reorganised, I guess is the best way to say, by the AFP, not knowing when they're going to be arrested, and the government have already concluded that they're guilty. It's been, you know, a very hard journey. And then last week, hearing that Ben Robert Smith had been arrested whilst in front of his two children, which is very close to home to me. He's got twin girls, and that's part of our family, and that has hurt us significantly just before Anzac Day. So on the 25th of April is a big day for Australia. It's the day that we come together, we do marches, we do dawn service, and it's a big day that we remember the fallen. Every day is a day of remembrance, so but we remember the fallen, and we wear our medals, and it's kind of like, I guess, your Veterans Day. And it's a big day, and therefore April's a very hard month for veterans. Psychologically, we struggle because it's a lot of anniversaries. A lot of people don't do well in April, and so therefore there's a lot of anniversaries. To have that also done in the same month is being a slap in the face by our Australian government. Why are you arresting our Victoria Cross winner? Like, why? There's no rules in war, but we have rules. And it's been very hard. And I have seen it on my yoga mat with the guys here. They don't know, do we trust our government? And then, you know, you've got the boys. When I say the boys, the regiment boys, they're not taught to get in front of the camera and represent themselves because they don't do that. They, you know, they kind of do their thing behind the camera. So they've come and had a beautiful documentary that they've paid for themselves, which I've seen 3 or 4 times. And every time I've gone, I've taken a bunch of veterans with me, because to go somewhere, you need to organise it. You know, we go together as a group. This is the transportation that we need to go on to. It's okay. Plan B, if you have a panic attack, we can go this way. Like, you've got to plan your outings into the city. So every time the Bravery and Betrayal SAS documentary was held, I will go and take veterans. So then they will see the boys' side of the story. It's going to be aired the day after Anzac Day on Channel 7, which is huge, because originally the boys weren't going to do that because we can't trust the media. To be able to see guys that I call uncle out of respect, Bry, you know, he joined and did selection with my dad back in 84, and he's crying on this documentary because he's talking about one of his men that got blown up. And to see him cry on TV was powerful because he's allowing guys to show emotion. And I said to Uncle Dan Fortune, thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing emotion, because men, you're allowed to show emotion. It's not a sign of weakness. So I have the utmost respect for those guys. And with that comes the working dogs as well, the retired working dogs, that one of the guys who wasn't on the documentary, but his ex-regiment, he has started this organisation, because in our country, if you've got an SAS dog, an army dog, when they're no longer fit for service, that's it. out they go. They're no longer financially supported. And whoever takes ownership of that dog, mostly it is the handler, they've got to financially pay for those dogs' injuries. And a lot of them have joint issues from Afghanistan, spinal injuries, and it's not cheap. And 9 times out of 10, the handler themselves is leaving Defence Force, and our insurance company over here for veterans is very difficult to navigate and very, very hard to get funding for. So that is also close to my heart. So I always want to say firstly, thank you to you guys, because the way you guys look after your servicemen and the respect, absolutely amazing. Like, it brings me to tears when I think about my time in Florida, and it's something that we need to do more here in Australia. And because of my time in Florida, I discovered what a service dog was, because we are a bit behind here in Australia. And when I was going to America, everyone had all these dogs. Dogs do. They're called service dogs. What do they do? My grandfather joined the Navy at 17 because he had 2 options: go to jail or you join the forces. So he joined the Navy. And later in his career, he was one of the first 12 cohort to become a dog handler. And I see firsthand how dogs have healed my pop. He can communicate with dogs. He can't communicate with humans because he gets too angry and frustrated. But he can communicate with dogs, and dogs love him. They follow him everywhere. He's like the dog whisperer. So when I went to Florida and I discovered service dogs, I thought, well, that makes sense. I've seen it with my grandfather. And at that time, I was very underweight. I was very angry. I was very, very frustrated. And I just had a baby as well. So hormones were going everywhere. I need a service dog. How do I get a service dog in Australia? Well, in Wait a While, Western Australia, here in WA, we're 20 years behind the rest of the country, let alone Australia. So I was very lucky to get a hold of Integra Service Dogs Australia, who happened to be at the Invictus Games in 2018. And I got my dog, and it was just meant to be. COVID happened. Dog needed to be rehomed because the handler, ended up becoming allergic to her. I got her. And Ivy saved my life later on. And her and she's very famous here in WA, Ivy girl. And now I'm on my second dog because she retired last year. She actually stopped working at the SAS documentary that we went to because it was so many emotions in the air, as you can imagine. And she's ex-custom, so she's sniff trained. She just kind of sat down and went, I'm not working anymore. And she just kind of put a foot down and said that was it. So she hasn't worked since. But now she's a therapy dog, sort of helping children or veterans mainly, which I think is absolutely amazing. I love that. So I still see her when she comes to visit me for yoga classes. So thank you guys for service dogs, because if it wasn't for you guys with your service dogs, I wouldn't have known about them. And I need to have a service dog to keep me alive. So thank you again, guys, for being so advanced in your welfare and how you look after your men and women. So I went to Invictus Games in 2023. It did take me 6 years to get into the team, but I finally made the team. And I made the team to show people that me, who struggles with my weight, who struggles with her fitness, if I can do it, then anyone can do it, because it doesn't matter if you've got a broken back or missing legs or you're not fit. That's not what it's about. It's about movement. It's about getting out of bed and having a goal for the day, putting yourself out into the community, connection. It's not just your fitness test for Defence Force. So I wanted to show people that if I can do it, then anyone can do it. But I had my own issues in my head, I was battling anorexia, and I had this in my head that I'm weak because my dad's SAS. He's 63 now and he still beats half the 25-year-olds. And I'm weak. I couldn't even do 11 years of service. So I had that mentality in my head. Never would my dad agree. If I ever said that in front of his face, he would shoot me down, And absolutely, he's like, no, you're amazing. He thinks I'm absolutely amazing. So at the time, my relationship had ended with the boy's dad, but I was dating a paraplegic, and a very high level paraplegic as well. And Matty Brumby is a 2-time world Ironman. So I believe on paper he's the most successful para Ironman in the world. And we started dating because I loved his mentality and his positive attitude and his go get them kind of attitude. It doesn't matter that he's 3/4 paralyzed. I can do that. He still drives trucks and rides motorbikes, and I love that. I think that's fantastic. So I had 3 weeks training with him in a chair, in a wheelchair, because in Western Australia, we don't have anything here. Unfortunately, our government, once again, is a bit behind the times. Like, we have the SAS here, we have the submarines, which are becoming nuclear soon. And we have the biggest Navy base here in Western Australia, but we've absolutely got nothing for veterans, which is very heartbreaking, unfortunately. So that's why I spent a lot of time in front of the news saying, where's our support? Where's our support? So I had to fly to Adelaide to be with him. And so he trained me up and down his street, dodging cars, how to use a wheelchair. And he's tough love. Like, I had 3 weeks and I'll be like, I was only doing a 100-meter sprint. He'll make me do a kilometer. And I'm like, I don't want to do a kilometer. This hurts. Like, I can feel my legs and this is really painful. But with his tough love, it helped me. And as it was when we went to Germany, my dad came over, which was absolutely amazing, and my 6-year-old son and my partner. And day one was my race, and the 100-meter sprint was a big race because we had, for the first time, Australian females in wheelchairs. The only other time that we had someone competing in a wheelchair was Maddie, my partner, which was 5 years earlier. We just don't have people, and we don't have the gear, to be honest. So I had to borrow a wheelchair from southeast Queensland that was in the bush to come over to the other side of the country. I had to clean her up. Like, we just don't have the facilities here. So that was a big race. And for me, it was all here. I'm a big believer in visualization and meditation. And the soon-to-be Chief of Navy, his dad taught me that, the power of the mind. And 3 weeks training is nothing in a wheelchair. That's nothing. Like, honestly, I didn't even know how to use it properly. So it was all up here. And I had rehearsed my race in my head thousands of times. And so when it actually happened, when the gun went off, it was basically Australia versus America in our race. It was just head down and off I went. And when I put my head up and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to win this. I don't win anything. I'm a bench warmer. I'm the medic that sits on the corner on the bench, making people feel better when they hurt themselves. I don't win anything. Like, I always come last. My fitness is not my strong point. Am I actually going to win something in front of my dad internationally? This is huge. In front of my son. It was very overwhelming. And so when I won gold, and I won gold by 5.5 seconds, so that's a lot in a 100-meter race. It was purely the power of the mind and practicing that over and over in my head. The Americans came second and third, and we're like sisters, and I love that. And they came and gave me a hug and a kiss, and then that's when my legs started to go to jelly, because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't win anything. And I remember going up to my 2 coaches who had been there throughout my 6-year journeys, watching my anorexia and slowly gaining the weight over that 6-year period. They were like, you did it, Karney. Kay, you did it. Like, you cry when you do exercise, because my body, I'm trying not to put it into a panic attack. And here you are, internationally, being watched by our Chief of Defence Force live. You won gold. Like, this is our first Australian gold medal, first medal in a race for a female. So that was amazing. My dad, he had tears in his eyes. And this is an SAS sniper of 42 years, He goes, oh, I'll admit it. I had tears. That's a bloody proud moment. But to have my 6-year-old son witness that too, he still remembers it to today. And Maddie as well. And it was that was phenomenal. The next day, I also got seated shot put and got second, which I didn't think would happen. So I actually sent my partner into the arena where it was air conditioned, because he can't obviously sweat, where below his injury line. So I said, look, the Americans have got this one. You saw me at discus. I'm going to be pants. Just go, enjoy, be in the nice air conditioner. I'll let you know how I go. And I got silver. But the thing is, how I got silver is because the people we were competing with, we all supported one another. And if you watch my clip, it's an American filming me, and they're all screaming out, going, go, Karney, you've got this, Karney. And I'm like, thanks, guys. Like, I love that brother-sister relationship that we have. Doesn't matter what country we're from. And that's so special. So it was because of my sisters in America that got me that silver medal, because that's all I had there, because my dad and my boyfriend were in the arena. So when I got silver, I was just like, my goodness, because my last name's Armstrong. I actually do have a strong arm now in shot put. So I love that. And so it was a beautiful time in Invictus Games. I did lose bronze in archery, which was my baby. I got in my head, and I had bronze in my hand against a UK lady. And I looked over to my right-hand side, and I saw a fellow medic from the Ukraine sitting there, and she had not long beforehand been exchanged by the Russians as a prisoner program. And I saw her, and she couldn't even move. From when you shoot on the line, then you got to step back after you finish shooting. She couldn't move, so she just sat there because of her injuries. And as a medic, and she's a medic, I had a conversation with her before that event, and I got in my head, and I just went, I don't deserve bronze. I haven't really been spending much time on my bow because I've been trying to do the wheelchair. And I looked over at her, and I could feel her pain. I could feel her pain as a medic, and I can only imagine what it would have been like for her as a prisoner. But she was still, you could just still, she was still there in her head. And I got in my head, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't deserve this. And I lost bronze. I lost it. I can't believe I lost it, but it was a good lesson for me. And I gained a beautiful friend out of it. The UK lady and I are quite close to this day still. But that was a shock to me because down here we're a bit protected in a way. And when we were in Germany, it was like, oh, the war's just over there. Like you turn on the news and they're talking about the war, and it's like in Australia, it takes you 5 hours on a plane just to get to one side of the country. You know what I mean? We're a big, big country. Like where I live is, I think, 2.8 times bigger than Texas. Like we're spread out here. To know that the war is just happening over there, it blew my mind. To see someone who had just been exchanged as a prisoner, that blew my mind. As a medic, it was a big eye opener for me. And yeah, that was big for me to be able to kind of see all that. And so when I got back to Australia, we have something called the post-game blues, and it hit me. I came home, and I think I had been holding on to the Invictus training post my discharge, and that was I was still holding on to defense. Now that Invictus had finished, I'm a single mum. I looked around. I just had my service dog. I was separated, with my ex-fiance. I'm no longer part of the military. I've got no attachments to the military except for my dad and the boy's dad, but I'm no longer attached to the military. And when I looked around, I felt the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. And I'm an only child, so I grew up by myself, but I have never experienced loneliness as I experienced that time after the Invictus Games. And that drove me to try and end my life. And my service dog, she saved me. And I still don't know how to this day she was able to save me, because I'm a very stubborn woman. If someone tells me no, I do it, And for an example, for my race, knowing that it was live and the Chief of Defence Force was watching it live, I stuck on a sticker, which is a bit political, saying I support the Nameless 19, being those SAS guys that are under investigation. So I could show the guys back home that you may not know who I am, but here in Germany, I support you guys. The other West Australian athlete just got out of the regiment after 20 years, and my dad is SAS. So I support you guys. And when I came back, I felt so lonely. And yeah, so she saved my life. And that's just, it still blows my mind. So I went into hospital, and there was a hospital that we had, that the ward is dedicated to veterans and first responders, ran by Allied Health, that have worked with veterans, so they get our black sense of humour. And in therapy, we could actually talk about our traumas, because other mental institutions, we get told to be quiet because of vicarious trauma, because they can't understand. And I had a fireman who we're still very close to this day. He said, this is the first time I can tell this story. When you drag someone out of the fire and do CPR, the skin melts. That's reality. So he could never talk about that because, oh, can you please be quiet? Because civilians can't relate to that. And you've got to protect them, of course. Vicarious trauma is very important. But where can you go then? And unfortunately, after 12 months of operation, that ward was closed, which is very political. And I'm still on the bandwagon about why has that been closed and why haven't you replaced it? So we actually got nowhere else we can go now. So here in WA, we're very, very isolated. I think we're the fourth most isolated place in the world, and we've got nothing here. Like I said, we've got the SAS, we've got the nuclear submarines coming, biggest Navy base, but we've got nothing. And that is hurting us. When we're coming into winter here in Australia in April, that's when people struggle. Obviously, the temperature drops, injuries flare up, they isolate themselves more, they don't get out into the community as much. But then April is such a big month for us, which is the beginning of autumn, where the temperature changes and we're struggling. And where people are like, where do I go? Because if I go to a civilian hospital, you're mixing it with other people from all different walks of life, particularly the police officers. Where can they go? Have I arrested you? I can't talk about my stories because you probably know them and it's probably your cousin, or I probably have arrested you. Do you know what I mean? Where do they go? And so this is where I get on to the news a lot and say, and it's probably going to happen again very soon, what are you guys actually doing? This is killing people, and it hurts so much. So I lost a girlfriend of mine to suicide, and she left two boys who were very similar ages to my boys, and we served together. I was her medic on my last platform. And when she took her life, that really, it hit home. And I think it's maybe because it was a female, I don't know, maybe because her boys were similar ages to mine, but she still saw me as her medic when we caught up, and our little boys were playing rugby together. She still saw me as a medic, and she still spoke to me like a medic. And I thought, I need to do something. I don't know what it is. All I know is yoga. I'll start there and we'll just see where that goes. So me being me, I did yoga, and I had been doing yoga myself for a long time. But when I started doing teacher training yoga, I've got injuries. I can't do certain poses because of my hips. And I thought, how are veterans are going to do these poses when they're not accessible to myself? And the language, that if you're going to be chanting in class, you're going to be triggering people. So then I discovered the trauma side of it all. And I was lucky that the lady was here in Perth, and I studied with her, psychologist, and she had studied at the Boston Trauma Centre, which sounds amazing. I actually want a Boston Trauma Centre here in Australia. I think that would be absolutely amazing for us. And so I connected with that type of yoga. Still, it wasn't what I would say was the perfect layout for veterans. So I had to kind of put Karney's, little taste on it. And I've just produced what I think and feel is what will get the guys onto the mat. So it is trauma sensitive, and therefore we have no chanting or no music or anything like that. It's just stretching and breathing. Sometimes we don't even call it yoga because yoga is a dirty word. It's stretching and breathing. But I do change the language. So things like mindfulness can be upsetting because they feel that's fluffy. So let's concentrate on our hand as we're doing this pose. You just got to change the language that best suits particularly the men, so they don't feel like they're questioning their masculinity, because half of them can't believe that they're doing yoga. But some of them are from the SAS or commandos or clearance divers. And most of my cohort are men, to be honest, which I think is amazing. And I've only been doing it for 18 months now. I definitely have changed the lives of people, but I would say at least 2 people I know personally who I've saved their lives through yoga. That's a game changer. Because a lot of people go to Bali over here because it's close and it's cheap, and you can't take your THC oil. So when you go over there, the pain increases. Obviously, they get triggered. They rang me up and said, I'm self-harming. What do I do? I'm doing that yoga pose and I'm putting my legs up on the wall, but it's not working. And I'm like, well, it takes 20 minutes at least, mate. Do your tummy breathing, the kind of the breath work that the SAS guys from the Resilience Shield have taught me. I incorporate that into my yoga. And it's all about the language that you use, but it's us working as a team. So if the SAS guys and the Resilience Shield are doing something amazing, I'm going to take that. I'm going to say, this is what Tim Curtis says. We all know who Tim Curtis is. Absolutely respectful SAS operator or ex-SAS operator. If he says you do a double inhalation and a long exhalation, that's what we're going to do. And the guys will do that because an SAS guy says that's what we do. So I will do it. And so it's sticking to the no fluff side, and my yoga is called no fluff yoga, so it's got a bit of black humor to it as well. But it's sticking to, okay, guys, if you ever get triggered, this is your go-to. Put your legs up the wall. If not, splash some water on your face. Practice the pause, because practicing the pause could be the difference between you punching someone and going to jail, or turning around and walking away from the situation. And because we're dealing with so much anger, that's reality. And practicing that pause before punching on, I think, has saved at least one person from going behind bars. But yeah, I've got one of my female veterans, actually. It's mostly my females that are in trouble with the law. Which is surprising. I thought it would be the other way around. Their anger is huge. And I think men are more mindful about their anger and what they're capable of doing. So they've kind of realized pretty quickly that I needed to address that. But I think it's the female veterans that have gone a bit too long without addressing their anger, and they're the ones that are getting caught up with the law. So that was been an eye opener for myself. And obviously the cost of living has increased here in Australia. So we're dealing with homelessness, veterans who are living in the back of their cars, and homelessness because they can't afford the ridiculous prices over here. And I don't know how people can, to be honest. And so we're dealing with that. So having a space that is safe is the biggest priority for me. The yoga, that's the cherry on top. Being able to know that they've got somewhere to go. If you can't afford it, who cares? Just turn up. Somewhere where it's safe, that they can feel that they can let their emotions out or go to sleep. And that it won't leave the room. Whatever happens, whatever emotions come up, it won't leave the room. We've got a TLC corner. So if you pop yourself in that corner, we just know that you want to be here. We'll wait for you to come and talk to us. And it's been pretty powerful. I'll make sure that I do yoga like on Christmas Eve, on Easter Sunday, on those days where life might be a bit challenging for people who are isolated or may not have contact with their family. And myself, as a result of my family, of having generations of trauma and going to war, I have no contact with my family other than my dad, because each generation deals with their war service differently. And I'm seen as, I guess, a little bit alternative with the way I do things compared to the Vietnam vintage, and then my mum's vintage as well. And that's okay. That's just reality, unfortunately. Like, it hurts, but everyone deals with their traumas differently. And that's okay. If it works for you, that's okay. No, there's no right or wrong. And I think that's why I keep saying to people, it's your journey. If you listen to your body, and that's what I'm teaching people to do, is listen to their body, you can't go wrong. But unfortunately, our bodies are numb, or we numb them with alcohol or porn or anything like that, or we feel too much because that's why we want to numb it. Or sometimes, especially some of those who have done like SAS jobs, they can't feel anything, so they want to get that feeling back. So then they do risk behavior exercises and adrenaline seeking things to be able to feel back in their bodies. So that's my main aim, is just to have a safe place for them to come. They know they're welcome, they're not judged, and learning to teach them through science, because if I can't be any woo-woo-ness, no spirituality at all, because they'll just shut down. But if I go, science says, or research has proven, or Bessel van der Kolk has said, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I'll do that then. And so I talk about the nervous system as the sibling that's always forgotten about, and the musculoskeletal system is like the sport sibling that's always getting the attention. If you're listen to your body and the body says stop, and stop, because that's the ego. And if you don't listen to your body, you're listening to your ego. So I use the word ego. But when it comes to listening to the body, by breaking it down into those two systems, I say, let's listen to the nervous system. And I'm trying to teach them what it is to feel to listen to the nervous system. Because if we don't listen to the nervous system and we forget that sibling, the musculoskeletal system is going to let you know when you're sore, when you've pulled too far or you've done too much. It will let you know. But we've got to not forget the poor, sibling, which is the nervous system. So, like I said, it's been 18 months. Most of my cohort are men. And I would say of occupations of the Defence Force that I would never have thought would be on my yoga mat, which has been absolutely an eye-opener. And I wear hot pink because after going to Catholic schools all my life and joining the Navy, I was sick of wearing a uniform that looked like everyone else. I like to be different. I like to stand out. So hot pink is obviously stands out. And color psychology, pink is happy, it's love. And I'm known for pink as well. So we all wear the hot pink shirts, and the men love it. They call it aggressive salmon though. And they love it because on the back of the shirt is I do yoga so I don't kill people, because that's reality. And so the men will walk around the shops after they've done yoga and they're parading around in their shirts, and I do yoga because that's the way that they are owning their mental health. If that's the way they want to own their mental health, I say go for it, and it's a conversation starter. What do you mean you do yoga so you don't kill people? Like, what do you mean? Well, where I live is the second largest veteran population in the country. We've got a lot of veterans here. And you know what? There's been a 20-year war, if you haven't realized. We don't talk about the fourth trimester, like pregnancy. What happens after war? We just don't talk about it. People just want to go back to normal. That doesn't happen. And our children are now, and as a result, obviously, me, of my parents going to war, but the children who are 13, 14 and are going through puberty, they're not coping, because all their lives it's been their parents going to Afghan or asylum seeking. So there's been a lot of asylum seeking over here with big incidences that have happened. And now at 13, 14, they don't know how to articulate it. And they see on the media, Ben Roberts-Smith is a murderer. This SAS guy's a murderer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. My dad does that. Or what do you mean? And so there's a lot of confusion in the little kids. And I would love to go down that path to do yoga for children or somatic movements for children, because I know as a child at 13 and finding out that my dad was SAS, it was hard. And having my pop, who has Vietnam veteran, educate me on what my dad does, it was not PG rated. He told me very gory how much, like what SAS do and how gory it was. And I'm like, Pop, maybe you should have worded it a bit differently. I didn't need to know all the details, but he wanted to teach me that don't worry about your dad. He's not going to go crazy like me. They only pick the best of the best, and they can do what they do, and they're fine. Well, no, Pop, they do go. They're human. They bleed. They're human beings. The nervous system and the body can only handle so much. So that in itself, with the regiment guys, I love it, but they deal with things differently, and I respect that, and I respect those boys wholeheartedly. But I'm more worried about the children that are coming through, particularly with what's happening with the investigation of the war crimes, because they arrested Ben Roberts-Smith in front of his 15-year-old twin girls. That just shows you the disrespect that they have, or the lack of awareness that they have. And, for the last 5-10 years, he's been followed by the AFP, and they don't hide. They make themselves known that they're there. And I know how it feels at 15 years of age, dealing with that. And so my heart goes out to these children. And so that's where my story comes into it. My story was encouraged by my psychiatrist when I was in the mental institution to say, why don't you write that story, Karney, that you've been talking about? I think that'd be amazing. For me to write that story, I've had to overcome a lot of my own issues that have been brought up by childhood. And the WA German consul over here in Australia, she loves me. She's like a mum to me, actually. She is beautiful and very supportive of veterans. And I basically look up to her as a mother. And she has gone through it all. It's pen with her pen and edited it for me. But my book also brings in SAS guys, that I have met, and most of my dog handlers. And I've brought their characters in because these are beautiful role models that they need the kids can look up to, they should be proud of Uncle Andy, because Uncle Andy, well, his CAD dog has done the most parachute jumps out of parachute school, including humans. Like, these are amazing dogs that have done amazing things and have saved so many lives. The fact that they're not considered veterans when they're no longer fit for service is disgusting. But the SAS, they've had these thing over their heads for the last 10 years, and they're not trained to get on the TV and challenge themselves or fight for themselves. So I'm sort of having a positive spiel in my book about how amazing these SAS guys are, and how as a little child, how you feel certain things in your belly as it's getting close to your dad deploying, and how these close friends of your dad, they're kind of like uncles. You do call them uncle because that's respect, and you don't want your uncle to go away either. And it's just talking through the eyes of a 9-year-old and how she sees her dad going away all the time, and how she feels that in her body, as I did growing up. She has a service dog, and it's talking about the service dog too, and the working dogs being the SAS dogs and stuff like that. So that's going to be on the near horizon, hopefully get published soon, which will be amazing if I can find a publisher that will pick it up. But it's about saying, boys, we haven't forgotten about you. The kids, we haven't forgotten about you. And it's okay to not be okay, guys. No one is immune from the side effects of war. And I think that's what's changing. And to see some of them jump on the yoga mat, to wear their pink shirt, to say, I'm ex-SAS, I'm doing the downward dog. And it breaks that stigma, and it allows men to go, okay, I'm allowed to do yoga. I don't have to question my manhood, because a lot of them do question their manhood when it comes to the yoga. But they keep saying it. I don't know what you call this voodoo yoga, but it works. I can't believe I'm coming back, but it actually works. Physically, I'm in less pain, but up here, I'm sleeping better. I don't understand the science, and I don't want to know the science. I'll just keep on going, So I love that. And so now I do 3 or 4 classes a week. I do most of them for free, so it is more accessible. But in my classes, I have 80-year-olds all the way down to 20-year-olds. I have Tourette's, I have disabled people in wheelchairs, all different disabilities, and we just make it happen. And I think they all love the fact that we just have it in the one class, so they're not segregated. So the people in wheelchairs aren't always just with people with wheelchairs. They're with young people that they say are young. And they hear the stories of the veterans, and the veterans hear the stories of these people, and they're like, oh, you don't feel like you belong in society either. Well, we don't either. And we've created our own little tribe. And like I say, tribe is so important. You are the company you keep. Tribe is really important, and everything's trust. And to have these groups, and we have a beautiful lady, she's 73. She looks like she's 50, to be honest, and she's German. And again, she just cries, and she just says, oh, you guys are so beautiful. I'm so sorry with what's going on. I can hear it in your voices. I see it on the news. And she doesn't understand, because her upbringing has been completely different. So it's lovely, because I've just made it ourselves. We've done it ourselves. And it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And I love that. We've got people traveling 40, 50 minutes each way to come to yoga class because they trust me. And with the fuel crisis, they've got to sell a kidney to be able to afford that. But they're doing that because they don't leave home. And the only time they leave home is to go to yoga. And so therefore I've started to go on YouTube just to make it more accessible for those who can't afford the petrol, who can't leave the house when it comes to winter, just to kind of go, hey guys, it's primarily for servicemen and first responders, but if you can understand my Black humor and the way I deliver things, then you do it too. It's stretching and breathing, and we're all one. If it helps you calm your farm, I'm happy to do it. So I've been doing that on YouTube and winging it, as I don't know anything about technology, but the response, I might put something on Facebook, I might do a clip, and I might get 6 likes. That means nothing. Like I don't do ego, but it's the messages that I get afterwards. Thank you so much, Karney, for saying that. I'm not the only one. I'm so glad someone's finally addressed that problem, and it's that feedback that I get behind the scenes that makes me go, okay, I'll say it. I don't hesitate to get in front of a camera. Make sure that I don't look like I do at 5 o'clock in the morning, though, to get my point across. And it's not heard of, because I'm a strong female and I'm a very feminine female as well. So that's not very common, I guess. But because I've been brought up with, my dad being SAS, I've been brought up with a Vietnam veteran. I've been brought up with a single mum in the army. They've taught me to have a strong backbone. And thank goodness, because politicians aren't nice. And so I just get on TV when they put a camera in my face, and I just say what they don't want to hear. And it helps veterans. And they think I'm not the only one who's struggling. No, you're not. And we don't have the facilities like we're being promised, and that's letting us down. So
Connie,
yeah.
I got to jump in, because your testament has been, I've just been watching almost every aspect of service, being brought up in a family of veterans, and the impacts, which is actually not talked about a lot. That the battle comes home and the children carry it forward. Just the way in which you have faced adversity and taken time to heal. Your love of the tribe that you're surrounded by, as well as when you talked about feeling a sense of belonging and purpose. Your body-based modalities and approach to healing. I mean, it's like an encyclopedia. It's almost like there's about 25 more conversations to have. And I know people here are busting to ask you some questions because, I mean, I was just, scrawling endlessly on a paper all these incredible pearls of wisdom that you were bringing out. You have led an incredible life, Karney. I have so much respect and value the amount of care that you take to your tribe and the honesty that you bring and a recognition of the parts of yourself that can offer modalities that heal so powerfully. I think you also portray that when our environments are disruptive, especially as we are approaching a really sensitive time over Anzac next weekend, which is a very powerful time. We're very fortunate as Rhodesians who have been in the war to be able to march in that. And I know how powerful it is and how meaningful it is to have people thank you. So I want to thank you for the gift of your story today. And I know that folk here want to pile some more in, and I know we also would love to carry on till about 12 o'clock. But let's see. Anybody got any questions you want to ask, Karney? I have 100, but I think I've talked enough.
Yeah, so absolutely. The first thing I want to say is thank you for your service, Karney. Thank you. And thank you for your continued service because what you were doing absolutely matters. It absolutely matters. And I echo everything that Barry just said. I was doing the same thing with my notes. Time wise, we wouldn't have time to address all the things I've written down here, just like with Barry. And so maybe that means we need a part two. So we'll see how that goes too. But it's interesting how similar we are as people. Doesn't matter where you are on the globe. People are people, and there are base things that we need to be secure and to live a meaningful life. It's very, very similar for everybody. Your story as a child reminds me of mine. Being alone a lot. My folks split up when I was young, and won't go into all that, but I was relating to you at a very early age in my experience as well. And we have a book called the Power, Wounds to Wisdom. It's behind Sarah there. That's her backdrop. And there's like 27 of us that wrote. We were veterans and first responders, and I chose to write about my childhood because I want other kids to, know, hey, you're not alone. People suffer through things like this, and here's my story. So if a guy like me can live a full life and learn, that's important. And that's what you're doing, and you're giving back to the world. It's not just Australia, right? People saw you in the Invictus Games. They're going to see you more on what we're doing here with this podcast. And I'm just so glad that Barry was able to find. He finds all these good guests, right? So he keeps me. It's like a competition almost, but he does a stellar job in finding the right people to bring on to this podcast, and you are absolutely no exception. You're leading the pack with a lot of good folks. You mentioned SAS, and just for folks that might not know, folks that will see this, so those are the Special Air Service, special operators, special forces for Australia. They're elite, and that's who her dad is, and that's who a lot of the folks are that she was referring to as she was telling her story. The Invictus Games. I did want to get this in real quick. So Sarah has her irons in a lot of fires, right? So she's connected with Guy McDermott, who's the commander of the veterans, VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars in Solana Beach here in California. And he is partnered with a gal, Melissa Love, who runs Project Restore Hope. Good folks. Well, when I was at the VFW yesterday having coffee, in fact, Robert, who joined us later, he had things to do, and he said he would join if he could, so he's here today. Um, he was there, and I was chatting with Melissa, who said, "Well, yeah, Guy and I just met with a veterans group in San Diego, the Veterans Council, and they're entertaining being on the list of hosting the Invictus Games in
Oh,
San Diego." So they're
wow.
part of that, and that's news to you, Sarah. I just learned it yesterday. So they're very excited to be. I think it's maybe the Netherlands, San Diego, and then one other spot. So we're really hoping that it's here in our backyard here in Southern
Yeah,
California. So if it is, maybe we'll see you. So
yeah, hopefully it's what that is amazing. And what you guys are doing with your the warrior games that you do every year. Oh, we would love that down here because once again, it's you guys recognizing the service that people have done. And one just quickly on the SAS documentary, there's two American one's a pilots that they talk on the program, and one guy he said, I've done Afghanistan so many tours, but when I go back to my country, I have the support of my countrymen. I couldn't, and that's tough enough, to deal with Afghanistan and then have the support of my countrymen, which is amazing. I couldn't believe or imagine what it'd be like to go back to a country that doesn't have you back, and to see the Americans on this documentary, you guys just keep going. Support, like you made me cry by saying thank you for your service because it's something small, but it's not small. Saying thank you, and it's something that we do on Anzac Day, but that's it, one day a week, one day a year. We don't say it all the time. And at the moment, it could be the difference between someone going over the edge and not going over the edge. So you by saying that just brought tears to my eyes because we're living with the scars every single day. And for someone to say thank you for your sacrifice, it absolutely means the world. So thank you guys. And the Warrior Games, all that is just amazing. I
Arnie,
want to
you're
bring
you're
that
giving me
enthusiasm down under.
you're giving me chill bumps just listening to what you're saying. And you mentioned earlier, before we recorded, and you've mentioned it once or twice, words matter. Words
Yeah.
mean things, right? And so we learned a very valuable lesson in America during the Vietnam War. A lot of men and women too. Women absolutely served. There are nurses that saw a lot of stuff that they'll never be able to unsee, right? And that was a very silent service, and they were being spit on as well, just like the men that were out in the jungles facing war. And so we learned that okay, that's not the way to do it. Politics is politics, but these men and women serve, and they're not serving for politics; they're serving for country, right? And so when I was a Marine, I would tell my guys and gals, look, when we get back stateside, if someone comes up and thanks you for your service, that is gold because it didn't always happen. And treat it and treat them like it's the first time you've ever heard that because they are giving you a piece of their heart by telling you that. And it's that important. And it absolutely matters. And so thank you that you care, that you see that. That's important to us too,
Yeah.
because it's easy
Yes.
to forget, So, well, I've taken up enough time here. So what as Barry was looking to do, to open it up to other folks that are here watching live, I see Sarah has her hand up, so we're gonna switch over to Sarah and see what she's got for us.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Carney, thank you so much for sharing your story, your heart, your thoughts. I just feel like one mama bear to another mama bear. I just really felt you. I really felt the passion that you have for the situation. Like I really feel that. And it made me sad too to hear about the lack of support. Like we still have a lot of work to do in America for our veterans and first responders. Like we feel that, like we have a lot of work to do on the back end. But to hear about what you're fighting for to get more support for those who protect the country. I really want to lift you up for just what you're doing. Like you're really putting yourself out there in such a beautiful way. I love the pink idea. That's really cute. But it's powerful. You're doing powerful work. Um, and listen, I can edit this next part out, but I'm just going to keep it recording just for now in case you want it in. I am very curious though about the SAS when you feel like there's a lot under investigation for war crimes. Do you feel like they're being treated unfairly or just culturally totally incompetently? Or did they not get the support they need before maybe going off the rails? Like, I'm really curious how this has been handled.
Yeah, so basically it's just been the way that the media has portrayed it. Do you know what I mean? They've just
Oh.
kind of I have felt they've blanket the whole unit saying they're the cowboys, they're not doing what they should be doing. And that's not true. And you
Mm.
know, there's a meme going around at the moment, and it's a picture, and it's, you know, an Australian in a trench, and just, oh, there's bullets going around, and saying, oh, hang on, I've just got to call my lawyer before I'm allowed to shoot, you know. um, you can send someone to do something, and every single day they were in a firefight, you know. Your nervous system can only handle so much. And then it comes to a stage that they feel more safe over there than they do in Australia, you know. Doesn't that speak volumes? And doesn't that say to the doctors and the medics, why haven't you picked this up? Why are we still sending them back there after they're, oh, some of them have done 9 tours, you know, in a 20-year war, and not go, that may not be psychologically sound. And then, you know, 10 years later, 5 years later, oh, by the way, we've just spotted something here that's not kosher or whatever, you know. It's been a 10-year witch hunt. $300 million has been spent on this witch hunt of these 19 individuals. We just finished a Royal Commission into Veteran Suicide, which was $250 million. And the minister lives in the same state as me, and we got nothing. So it's kind of like, what are we learning here, guys? We're spending a lot of money, but there's all this and no action. That frustrates me. I don't like when this and action doesn't match up.
Yeah.
So I feel that the media are uh, putting the wrong information out for the Aussies to listen to, and I'm surprised, but I'm very relieved at the same time. And I think a lot of us are. When the arrest happened last week, the veterans have uproared, and with what's been happening in the last few years, I thought we would all roll over. To be honest, I thought the Aussie spirit's gone. You know, the Aussie battler that gets in and, you know, fights for each other. I thought that had died. But when the uproar, I was like, it's so good to see that. You know, we're one. Doesn't matter what service, doesn't matter when you served, we're one. You know, it's easy for us to stay down under and go, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Maybe that wasn't, you know, you didn't brush your teeth there. But I think what's upsetted people is it's down on the bottom levels. The officers, the one stars that are sitting in their comfortable chairs in a safe country, being the pen pushers, they're not copying anything. If anything, they're getting more medals. So they're not getting in trouble, but you're having to go at a corporal. Like, that's, you know, who's a Victoria Cross winner. So it's a lot of the leadership and the culture needs to change. And I think things like saying thank you for your bloody service, it's not hard. And this is where the government should be in saying that. Instead of spending all this money on TV ads and stuff like that, thank you for your service. Because if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be the safe country that we are today. You know, we wouldn't have females like myself going on TV and having my opinion. It could be a completely different situation. So thank you, guys. And that's where it needs to start. And I think we're so scared to talk out about it because it's, you know, the society has changed. Kids aren't learning about stuff anymore. Like, what do you mean? We used to do projects on World War One and World War Two and the Gallipoli campaign and all that kind of stuff. Oh, we're not. My kids don't even know what Gallipoli is, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's a disappointment to our education system. So I
Mm.
think it's a multiple areas it's been let down, and the question is now, how are you going to find 12 people that haven't been influenced by the media after 10 years of these headlines? You know what I mean? And this poor guy, he's 7 foot tall. He's had the AFP follow him nonstop. Like, you know, that will send anyone crazy. But
Wow.
yeah, that's that's heartbreaking. So we've spoken up, and we've now, even myself, after yoga, one of my Navy veterans has said, oh, hey, can we make khaki ribbons, because that's what we've been asking. Some of the Army guys have said, let's wear khaki ribbons on Anzac Day for Ben Roberts-Smith and for those 19, to say that we support you guys. So after yoga next week, we're going to get our craft on, and we're going to cut and paste and glue and make these little ribbons so we can hand them out to whoever, so they can wear them. So then people know that, especially the regiment guys, you guys are thanked for what you've done. You know what I mean? And bring back that Aussie pride, that we are one. And let's not just kind of listen to the government, which is on the opposite side of the veteran, and not forget what's happened. Like, we've got short memories here, and we also suffer from tall poppy syndrome, and that needs to be addressed as well. So yeah, I think, and with more support and programs like the Invictus Games and all that, it's amazing. That's what we need. We need movement. We need something to look forward to, and to show that you're not broken. The word broken gets used so much. You know, you're not broken. That's why we just make it more adaptive for you, so you are able to achieve what everyone else is achieving. You are getting a little bit older, not younger. You have been jumping out of airplanes for 20 years. Your knees are going to go. It's just common sense. So let's make it more accessible for you, so you can still have the same outcome. And don't let the ego think that you're weak because you've got to use a chair. That's ego. That's not. We don't do ego. We listen to the body. And so just trying to teach that, but I'm one person. And so, you know, and to be honest, I'm going to say something that's probably not taboo, but it's not spoken about. It's a very lonely life. I'm a single mum. I'm a strong female. I speak out. It's a lonely life. Politicians don't like me. I upset the media a lot, but it's lonely. And having I'm 38 now, so 30, I was 30 when I retired. I was 30, service dog, 2 kids. It doesn't really paint a good picture. Do you know what I mean? But yet I'm on TV and I'll say things that people are thinking, but they're not brave enough to say. It can be, and it is a very lonely life. So basically, it's just me and my service dog, and my 2 boys when I had them, when their dad's at sea. But it's lonely, and I do get lonely, and I think, am I actually achieving anything here? Like, or am I taking on too much, and kind of, is this juice worth the squeeze? But when I hear stuff like what you guys say, I think, oh, that's just been my life. That's just Karney. Karney just does Karney stuff, and I don't follow the narrative, because the narrative doesn't always work. I just follow with what I see in front of me. And as a medic, you treat the symptoms in front of you. You look at your patient and you go from there. You don't go by a textbook. The textbook says this, you treat what's in front of you. And that's exactly what I do. And it's refreshing to be able to have fresh eyes and people to say, hey, you're doing a great job, because sometimes you get in your own head and you think the negativity can sometimes overtake, and you think, am I actually making a difference? Am I? But when you have grown men in their 50s cry because you have saved their life, I think that's amazing. And you're teaching them what boundaries are, and teaching them what a tribe is, and to be selective with your tribe. That brings
amen. Amen is what I'm going to say to that. I'll go out on a limb with this, and I don't care. So, you said you grow up with a Catholic faith, right? So, Christ said, the world does not like me, right? So the world doesn't like things that are necessarily good. The world likes what it likes. The world consumes whatever it wants, and it isn't necessarily leaning to goodness. And what you're doing is goodness, and that matters. So it's possible that folks might not like that, but as long as you know what you're doing is good and right, that's the bottom line. And Barry mentioned it, and I want to mention this again, that you can just see that through you, the goodness of who you are as a person, and that you care. And that, and you mentioned before, words are nice, but how about some action? Well, that's what you're doing. You can speak to it, but you also can execute. And that really matters. And so, it's easy to doubt yourself on occasions. I mean, we all do. But just remember the good that you're doing. Just that one person you touched. That person can go on and touch other people and carry on, right? It's like the Great Commission, you're doing that work. And that's powerful. That's very powerful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Sarah, did you have anything else? Okay, looks like Rich has got his hands up. He's
Good.
being
Yeah.
Rich is always so patient. So we'll let you go, Rich. What you got?
First of all, Connie, thank you for your service and all the amazing things that you're doing and continue to do. A lot of the things that you said resonated with me. Uh, I know the first time as a Leo law enforcement officer that somebody said thank you for your service. I didn't know. I was just taken aback. I didn't know how to handle that. But but uh, we don't hear it as often as veterans do. But when you do hear it, I mean, it's really it, it it's a overwhelming feeling. I can't even explain the feeling, the emotion. Uh, Also, uh, I believe it's our duty to make sure that each succeeding generation is aware of the sacrifices that our veterans have made for the freedoms that we oftentimes take for granted, right? Uh, it's our duty because I'm afraid that if we don't take it upon ourselves to do that, history is not going to help us because, I mean, I can remember history when I was in school was a lot different than history they're teaching today, a lot different. And so, uh, also, your love for the dogs. Uh, I know you're on LinkedIn. You should connect with Jason Johnson. He runs K9 uh, Project K9 Hero, and
Okay.
it's an amazing organization. I mean, he funds all the veterinarian bills for the canines that are out there that need help, and I mean they spend th thousands of dollars trying to save an animal's life.
Mm.
And the charity navigator gave them a 4-star rating, which is the highest rating you can get. And when you dig into their background, there's very little money that goes outside of taking care of those dogs, and they also rehome them. They get them rehomed and stuff. It's
Oh, beautiful.
yeah,
That's good. I
Project
will. Thank you.
Project K9 Hero. Uh, in the Vietnam War, there were 4,000 dogs. The U.S. would not let any of them come home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are isolated stories. There's one story in particular I'll never forget. There was a Navy vet who was getting ready to put down a black lab in Dang Nang, and he saw the plane on the tarmac. He grabbed the dog and ran and put it on the plane. And I mean, that's wow,
That's what I would do. I would. That'll be me.
right? But once again, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for your
Thank
service,
you.
and it was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Richard, thank you, Rich. I'm going to start calling you Father Rich because of your wisdom. But I want to say this too, especially since you brought it up, Rich. And I think it's very similar to what's happening maybe in Australia. The silliness that we see with how our first responders, in particular police officers, are being treated here in the United States. The
Mhm.
past decade, 8 years, it's just been insane. That same madness is going on here with our police officers in terms of uh, politics. I mean, it's what it comes down to. It's politics to push a narrative, and it's wrong. And I think people are finally starting to see through it. You know, things change, and you just hope and pray that people get back to sanity in their lives, right? Because it's not too hard to look at this long enough to say, okay, this isn't right. This is not what we do. And so, I hope and pray that that happens in your side of the world over there. I think it will. It takes people like you doing what you're doing. And, folks see people with courage, and that gives them courage. It gives them the desire to want to step out of the shadows and say, you know what, that's important. I need to be part of this. So, and thank you, Rich, for your service too, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it looks like Barry's got his hand up. Barry, I'm gonna pass it over to you, sir.
Yeah, Karney, I'm also just aware of the time component. But Karney, I want to say, I'm probably the overlay of the Vietnam veteran war generation in the mid-70s. And as Rhodesian Bush War veterans, we were also called some interesting things. And we lost our country, we lost our citizenship. Rhodesians don't even exist anymore. We're just in cyberspace. And having spent 22 years working with veterans and current serving, you are an absolute gift to the men and the women who have served and who are so lost and dislocated. And you're a gift not because you embody all the intellectual wisdom, but you're a gift because you've got a heart, I must tell you, that is just extraordinary, this massive heart of love. And the one thing I've learned is that unless we can bring that love to the people we sit with and the people that are wounded deeply, it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to heal. Your passion and your fire is apparent, which means that people will trust you. You don't have to be smart, you don't have to have PhDs to do what you're doing. But to be able to do what you do, unfortunately, too many people haven't got to that point of embodying that love and that fire and that passion and that willingness to look beyond the restrictions of their personal training. So you are a gift. And I think there's so many segments of your story. We could just bring you back for another time just to talk about children brought up in a veteran home. Because that's something that does need to be unpacked. I don't know if it's really been unpacked enough. And I know, Sabine, that would be that generational trauma that just goes down generations. So, and the other thing I want to say, Karney, is that the aloneness you talk about, and I was saying to you that aloneness is, for me, has become one of the biggest factors that I think are disrupting and eroding people's lives. And just to know that if ever you get up at 10 to 5 in the morning, there is a home here for you to come on any time with Scott and I. I found this place through Sarah, and it has become my home because my generation didn't have a tribe. We didn't even maintain contact over the 40 or 50 years post our war. We just splintered off around the world. And finally coming back and belonging and having a part of a tribe, but also a tribe that's willing to share story, which is what you also highlighted powerfully. So, Connie, there's a home for you.
Thank you.
You're just 2 hours before me, so it's just that much harder. Much respect, because man, when they tried that on me, I drew a line at one point. I went, I'm not getting up at 4:30 for you guys. I love you guys, but not going to happen. And the time changes and messes up with that. But we have a home here for you. And the other groups that they run during the week. If you look at the program, Sarah can get your email address. I think she has it, and send you details. And we'd love to have you join us and be a part of this tribe of the power of our story. So really, thank you. I'm just wondering if anyone here has any questions. I know I'm pushing a bit of time. I have to head off quite soon. But anybody else have any comments? Or are we good?
Yes, I would like to say to Karney that I can relate very deeply to your experience, and for me it is unbelievable how you cope with your story, because I have an impression what transgeneral trauma means. I mean, I carry it, and it cost me much of my lifetime to face that. And for me, it's unimaginable to put someone on top. And this is what I feel. You are a fighter, and you're very give a strong example that yoga is an absolutely amazing technique, and your participation at the Invictus Games, that is really absolute impressive example. You don't give up. You are a fighter, and that is what I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Scott, do you want to draw this to a close?
Sure.
You do
absolutely.
better than I can.
Yeah, and I want to add that Sabine, being in Germany, it's what, 12:42 in the morning, very early Saturday morning for her there. She's hanging out with us into the wee hours of the morning. So we want to thank you for that, Sabine. But this has been a good one. So it's a great time. So with that, what we want to do now is thank you again for your time, Karney. This was a great program here, and just like Barry mentioned, you're part of our tribe now, so you're in. And we would love to have you back, and we can talk about that, at some point to see, maybe narrow it down to, a couple, maybe 2 or 3 things that we can really dive into. And I think that would be great. So with that said, you guys have a great Saturday. We're still kicking around Friday here in the West Coast. We have the evening to go through here, but you guys have a great Saturday. Enjoy your Sunday, and we look forward to the next time that we all talk again. So
thank you very much for your invite. Thank you. See you later, guys.
See you.
So much,
Bye,
Karney.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.